Hello, greetings to all the citizens of the United States of Africa and also the supporters of Global Pan-Africanism Network on both of our platforms on YouTube and also on Twitter handle. Today, the world is celebrating the International Day of the World's Indigenous People, and we are having this celebration when Indonesia is colonizing West Papua and many indigenous people are dying on a daily basis. On 15th of August, we are going to be having a virtual conference where we are going to discuss and deliberate on the West Papua issue and champion the cause for self-determination of West Papua. Indonesia occupied of West Papua after the New York Agreement that was signed, and on 15th of August is going to be 58 years of red and white colonialism, and the only way that we can put an end to this colonialism in West Papua is by standing by African brothers and rejecting this colonial repression and systematic human rights abuses, which has become the style of Indonesia, terrorizing civilians, killing innocent people. For more than 58 years, Indonesia has perfected in human rights abuses, but funny enough, the so-called human rights watchdog do not speak about the human rights violations being committed in West Papua. Is it because they are indigenous people or is it because they are black people? We need to raise our voices to make sure that the indigenous people in West Papua regain their independence. They have the right to be free like any other group of nations. And it's the responsibility of Africa, the African Union, the African leaders to protect the indigenous people in West Papua because these are Africans, they are people of African descent, and we should be standing in solidarity with them and ensure that we put an end to Indonesian colonialism in West Papua. More than 500,000 people have been killed since 1963, but this genocide has been largely ignored by the United Nations, by the International Criminal Court, just because West Papuans are black people. They're black just like us. So this is the time for us to raise the awareness on what is happening in West Papua, raise awareness on the systematic human rights abuses. Thank you, Africa. Thanks for joining from Vanuatu. So we need to share the stream and spread this information to many people so that we can put an end to Indonesian colonialism in West Papua. We African people can no longer tolerate the kind of brutality Indonesia is unleashing on our people in West Papua. And we have to continue raising our voices until Indonesia gets out of West Papua and grants the indigenous people their right to self-determination. Every nation has a right to determine its destiny. The indigenous people have a unique culture, which is different from the Indonesians. And in fact, West Papua is in Melanesia, while Indonesia is in Asia. So Asians and people of African descent are two different people. And what United Nations did is something that needs to be corrected. Because they know they made the mistake. Even the act of free choice, it was not free at all because the indigenous people are not given the right to decide their destiny. Only 1,025 people were allowed to vote out of 800,000 indigenous people in West Papua, which means that vote was not an act of free choice. And in fact, even those who voted under duress because they are told by Indonesian military, you either vote that West Papua become part of Indonesia, or we end your lives. So they are just voting to save their lives. And this is something that needs to be corrected. We need to ensure that the indigenous people rights and human dignity is respected, regardless the color of the skin. But we have been seeing for a very long time that this genocide is being ignored because they are black people and they are people of African descent. The systematic racism when it comes to human rights is something that is open. If the white man commits the same human rights violations, the United Nations is not going to take action against that white man or that white leader. But if it comes to the black man, the black leader who commits any human rights violations of whichever nature, the United Nations is very quick to impose sanctions on that country, very quick to take action, and even the ICC will take very quick action to prosecute that leader. But if that leader is white, they don't take any action. US just threatened the International Criminal Court, and the International Criminal Court did not take any action against the United States, in spite of a lot of evidence of human rights violations by United States military in Afghanistan and many other countries where the US is occupying. Even in Africa, we've been having so many cases where African women and children are being raped by these foreign militaries, but because of the color of their skins, these cases do not end anywhere. And we need to begin holding them accountable in Africa for any kind of abuse against children and women, so that they also get a fair share of justice. We cannot be holding this myth of white superiority when it comes to human rights. We believe that every race needs to be held accountable. If they commit crimes against humanity, we should be treated equally, regardless of the color of the skin or economic position. But this is not true in today's world. So this is why Africa has been fighting alone when it comes to the human rights violations, propaganda that is used by Western countries to continue justifying the evil economic sanctions that they are imposing on African countries. And yet these countries commit even massive crimes. They invade nations, occupy, loot and plunder their natural resources, kill millions of people, but no one is taken to the ICC. So we need to ensure that we Africans unite against all forms of international terrorism that comes in the way of economic sanctions, and also comes in the way of political propaganda that is meant to deceive Africans, to see that maybe they are the cause of their own problems. But in actual fact, these foreign countries are the ones that are causing all these problems that we are seeing. And as a result, people get desperate. They start complaining and saying the leadership has failed. But actually, they have engineered all these problems with their own motives of ensuring that They take over natural resources. They make us continue fighting against each other as they continue plundering our resources. So we also need to be very careful. As much as we are advocating for human rights, but at some point we also need to focus on the war against sanctions because, for example, in Zimbabwe's situation, we cannot just be talking about human rights alone when we are not talking about the removal of sanctions, which have made people very desperate. And as a result of these sanctions, people are in economic despair, and even the country itself is desperate. That's why you're seeing people struggling day and night to make ends meet. So I believe that the US does not have any moral authority to impose sanctions on other countries in the name of seeking for change. That itself does not have, it can be a very good role model if it starts by dealing with the systematic racial injustices against the African Americans, if it starts tackling the systematic racism in America. This is one of the problems that has disempowered Black people, and also there's no equal economic opportunities for Black people. During this pandemic, many Black people are losing their homes, and this is because of the income inequality and also unequal opportunities when it comes to housing. People are getting better chances of acquiring homes based on the color of the skin. And if you are living in such kind of a system, then even people who are living in Africa are better off because you are discriminated at every level. When it comes to school, you're not taught about your own history, and you come up with a Eurocentric mindset, and you forget that you are an African. And this is something that has really continually divided the people of African descent. And for us to be able to end all kinds of these divisions, like, for example, others, we have to come to the realization that we are Africans, and our pain in Africa is the pain of Africans in the diaspora, and if we don't work together, then they'll continue dominating us. And in the struggle to end the systematic oppression in Africa, we have to come together in solidarity. Let us support the struggles of Zimbabwe to make sure that these illegal sanctions are removed. At the same time, let us support all other countries. Burundi is also under sanctions, to make sure that all these sanctions are removed against African countries, and then we'll be able to develop on an equal footing. And then we also need to increase Pan-African solidarity to the indigenous people in West Papua, whose natural resources are being exploited at their expense, while they are living in deep-rooted poverty. We see there are so many American companies that are profiting from the natural wealth of the indigenous people in West Papua. There are so many British companies that are plundering the wealth of West Papuans while they live in deep-rooted poverty. And they do not see this as a human rights violation. They do not see themselves as worthy of sanctions because this is economic plundering and is profiting from the blood of the indigenous people. While the indigenous people are dying, you see that the European and American companies are exploiting West Papuan gold. They're taking away West Papuan oil and gas. And this kind of economic plundering must stop and must come to an end. And the only solution lies in the decolonization of West Papua and the independence. Also in Africa, there is ongoing continuous exploitation and plundering of our natural resources by foreign companies. And we just spectators, we get news that oil has been discovered, but we never get to see that oil. It does not even translate into lower prices in our stations. When you go to buy oil, it's always at the price of the US, at the price that they have determined. All these foreign companies, the foreign countries, these are the ones that determine the price of oil. They determine the price of the ornaments that we wear. Yet this gold is coming from Africa. So we need to really wake up so that we begin controlling our natural resources, and also ensure that if oil is discovered, we should be the first people to mine that oil, and we should be the first people to process it and sell it to others who do not have. Otherwise, we are going to continue living in a third world country for decades and decades. Many countries that have developed have only developed through natural resources that are available, and some have utilized the natural resources that are abundant in Africa to build their own countries into what they are now. Some use this as capital during the enslavement of Africans. We were used as capital for the development of Europe and America, and till today we have embraced an education system that only produces workers for European companies and American companies, and this is why you do not see any massive efforts to industrialize Africa, because the mindset is just about graduating and then getting a job, getting a good job, renting a good house. We do not have even the mindset to build our own homes, the mindset to start our own businesses, to start our own companies, the kind of mindset that we need to be able to create whatever we need for happiness and civilization. And in order for us to come out of this, we need to have an education system that meets the aspirations of Africans, and that is practical in nature. It helps us solve the problems that we have in Africa. That's the kind of education system that we need, and we need also to change the mindset to stop believing that there'll come a time when there'll be a white savior who will save black people everywhere. We are going to be our own saviors. The moment that we discard this colonial mentality that we were born to be served by other races, we have to unite in everything we do. Africans in Africa and the Africans in the diaspora, we have to come together. If we say march forward, then we are going to march forward and no one is going to be left behind. If we have such kind of mindset and mentality, then we are going to be successful. And whether we are in Africa, in Melanesia, in Pacific, in the United States, in Europe, we are going to triumph over imperialism and colonial exploitation if we come together and see the benefits of working together as one people, because our destiny is intertwined. We are also the indigenous people in Africa, And the same as there Indigenous people in Australia, we all have a common destiny, and this is the time for us to come together and begin addressing all these issues that we have been facing since independence, uh, since uh, uh, since the occupation of Australia. There are so many challenges that the indigenous Australians are facing, and we can only solve them if we come together and begin working as a united front and work towards the realization of United States of Africa.